Hey guys, welcome back to the Ghost and Friends channel. I am your host at 40 Acre Vibes. I got my two good buddies, Texas Twitter legends, Gage Sheets at Sheets G23. Every time I try to type your name in on Twitter and find our messages, I always start with G. I don't know why. I'll learn.
Yeah, I know.
Welcome back, Gage, and then of course the one and only Joseph Monero. Feeling all right today, guys?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I'm feeling good.
Yeah, and that's kind of how it was for me yesterday. I don't know if it felt inside the same for you, Joseph, inside of BKR, what the vibes were, but if you don't mind kind of talking about that. For us, outside, I don't know, it felt like kind of after the Quinn stuff, there's kind of just a dark cloud hanging over us for the rest of that game. Everything that I wanted to get excited about, it kind of just, there's a little bit of a pause, knowing that we have more kind of serious issues at hand. But inside of the stadium, Joseph, real quick, because it's going to be a huge topic. When Quinn kind of went down, what was the vibe like, brother?
I mean, obviously everybody was, upset that Quinn was hurt. But I think literally two plays. No, the next play, Arch comes in and scores a touchdown, right? So I think that kind of, at least inside the stadium, people kind of were like, let out a sigh of relief, like, all right, we'll be like, we want Quinn back, but we'll be fine in the meantime. Was kind of the thought.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, I know there's a lot of excitement. Obviously, every time Arch steps on the field, people are really excited. You just obviously you don't want to see it, and then that moment, the way that it happened. I know I haven't brought up any of the strained abdomen or the oblique, and I don't want to just speculate until we really know. Have you guys heard anything on that? I'm not asking you to speculate if you don't want to. I just personally, I'm just waiting and seeing because I don't want to get overly invested in it, I guess I'll say, because obviously everybody else is.
Yeah, I think. We talked about it a little bit yesterday, but and a little bit this morning. Just waiting for news to come out. Obviously, with a strained muscle, we talked about it a little bit. I had a strained quad, and I know it's different, but it's a muscle that's used a lot, and it depends on the severity. That's going to come with an MRI and stuff like that, and we'll really be able to tell how bad it is. But for a quarterback to have a strained abdomen, it doesn't sound good. And hopefully, in my opinion, we want him back for OU, right? Like, I think Arch is good enough to get us through. Even up to Georgia, probably, but you really want to see Quinn back for OU. I just think, the feeling is sick to my stomach, as I've said, because Quinn's worked so hard, and it's not that I don't think that Arch can do it. I mean, we've talked about how good Arch is. He's amazing, and I do think that he can carry this team. How far, I'm not sure, but it's the work that Quinn's put in and the progression that we've seen for the last 2 years, and just that it's finally it's putting it all together, and it's this is the team, this is his year. It's his year, not just in this state, but in this country. This is his time, and for it to happen on a strained, abdomen, it just my heart hurts for Quinn. So hopefully he's all right, and hopefully he's back for the OU game. That's kind of what I'm hoping for, but we'll see how severe it actually is.
Yeah, the thing I'm worried about for it is it's obviously it's appears like it's a muscular issue from what we've heard. But is that the same side where he injured his ribs before? Is that right? Am I wrong?
They didn't say us. Well, I guess he was pointing at his left side.
It was left center there.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was my first initial thought was, potentially something with his ribs. It's just kind of a little lower and more inside there on the stomach than most rib injuries, would really kind of bother you up through here. And so I was the same way. That's why you don't want to speculate. Gage and I talked a lot last night. If it is, a strained abdomen or oblique, I was probably downplaying the severity of it just a little bit, to be honest, because I think it would be a month at minimum before Quinn, would be able to return. But I don't want to speculate because I don't think we all fully know what it is. And anything before, they fully address it, I don't think it'd be fair to Quinn. But yeah, of course, you hope that it's the best. Gage, you kind of shared your opinion on this. And I hate to do so because I just don't think it's fair to Quinn or Arch, but it's what everyone's going to do right now. People are going to talk about it. Joseph, with Arch did play for an extended amount of time, several weeks in a row here. Do you think that limits the Texas upside any? Do you think ultimately Quinn has to return in order for Texas to reach the highest ceiling that we're after? What are your thoughts?
I mean, this was the longest stretch of a game that we've seen Arch play. Obviously started off very strong, touchdown pass, then the, insane 67-yard touchdown run, which,
Yep.
Great plays, looked very good. But I do feel like there was a noticeable drop off in play, in my opinion. There were a couple, especially at the end, there were a couple 3-and-outs where, it's just, he's not a veteran quarterback, right? Like he didn't start, but essentially it felt like his first start kind of, right? And there were a couple plays where like Quinn probably would have made a play here. But that's just, his first year quarterback basically. And I does it limit the potential? I don't know if it necessarily limits the potential. I mean, it's not like, we have a scrub stepping in a quarterback, right? Like it's
Right.
still a 5-star top rated guy who's very good. And the advantage of Texas is that the weapons around him are so good that they'll pick him up, I think, right? We'll see how long Quinn's out. Like, I think Arch would do fine against ULM and Mississippi State. I don't worry about that. I mean, I think you could put Trey Owens in those games and still be successful.
What about Davis Warren or Alex Orji? You think they could win a game with Texas? They probably
Those two. Those two.
Had to get one last needle in there.
Yeah.
But limiting the potential, I mean, if we're sitting here in October and Arch is the starting quarterback for the Red River game, like I think that's a different conversation. But even then, like I'd still be pretty confident going into that. It's more so, Georgia game and then potentially other stuff that I'd be more worried about, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. That's where I'm at. Last night it's fun to watch 16 get out there and ball. Everybody, we like it. I think we're all confident where he can or what he can do at Texas. But I mean, it's to me, in my opinion, it's Quinn's team. I'm not trying to make it, like a big debate, but Quinn and Sark in this particular version of our offense, I think that RPO game is just such a cheat code. Incredibly tough to defend, and we haven't even included many of the, like the deep ball concepts and things like that. That I'm sure Sark's probably just kind of chomping at the bit to throw in there when we get to some of the bigger games. That's not to say that Arch can't win those games. We just haven't seen him play in those games. We know what Quinn looks like against Alabama, against Michigan. He had 3 turnovers against OU, but he had a big game outside of the turnovers. Big game against Washington. When the lights are the brightest, that's when Quinn balls. And so for me, it's like, yeah, I would love to see him back by Oklahoma or by Georgia. But ultimately, it's like, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of trust, a lot of faith in Arch Manning, but I agree with what you said, Joseph. It looked a little bit different. He hasn't mastered that RPO scene that, Quinn has, not yet. And that's not saying that he won't. He could do it this year. The game reps are going to be really, really important. Let's see here. We got a somewhat of an enemy checking in, talking OU, and he pops up. That's about right. He sounds smarter than me, so I'm gonna trust him a little bit here. But so yeah, let's hope that Quinn is fine, bounces back soon. It's just we've seen him in those big games, and that's where my confidence, with Quinn out there, I don't fear Oklahoma this year. Georgia game, I like our chances in. With Arch, it's like okay, there's a couple more avenues just because of the experience factor, to where we might struggle in those games a little bit more. But like you also said, Joseph, it's a pretty good couple of tune-up games when you're talking about ULM and then Mississippi State, who is really, really, really struggling at the moment. That I don't know if y'all saw the Toledo score yesterday, but that's
to not only lose to Toledo, but to get blown out by Toledo.
Ran out of your own building.
I can't imagine that.
Yeah, I think just going back to Arch, I think the one thing, well, obviously he hasn't probably ran with the ones a lot in practice, so getting the timing of the actual game right, it just kind of seemed like his timing was a little bit slow, but not something that's not fixable. I think the thing that I saw with Arch was like it was all or nothing, and when UTSA could take away all, it was nothing. And I think that was kind of scary because it was either three and out, or a 70-yard touchdown. And the defense did at points look a little tired because they were on the field a lot more because it was great, but it was like a 70-yard touchdown or a 60-yard touchdown. I mean, there were like three separate times where he scored within the first, 3 plays of the drive, or they went three and out. And so I think the defense looked a little bit tired. I think that Quinn, when you're talking about Quinn, like he knows not just like we have to score, but we also have to control the game. And he can control the game because he's experienced and he understands that. And because of that, I think that that's going to be the big lack of the jump is the experience and being able to control the game. But we've got 2 games to figure that out where he gets to run with the ones just in case after the bye week he does have to play against Oklahoma. But the talent, I mean, the explosiveness, the things we can do in the offense with Arch, there are things that we can do that we can't do with Quinn.
Are you saying that Quinn doesn't try to score as fast so that he can help the defense out when you're making this comparison? Is that where
that's
you're
not exactly what I'm saying.
I'm
saying he has a better control of the game versus like Arch. Like it was a touchdown or nothing, Yeah, so it was like, I mean, he could score at any point. Arch's athleticism is unreal. It was like that run was crazy. I mean, that was nuts.
It is interesting that he comes out and immediately, there are a couple of deep shots taken. And for me, looking at that is that the offenses are going to look a little bit different between the 2 signal callers. Quinn is more of the RPO guy. He's got that all figured out right now. Obviously crushes it in the short and intermediate throws. Arch is pretty dang accurate on the move and tossing those deep balls. That rollout throw that he made to DeAndre Moore, the first touchdown, was that his first touchdown? I think to Dre. He rolls out to the right. It looked like a lot of the clips of him when he was at Newman, just flushing out of the pocket, ripping a dart. And, it's fun to watch. So, yeah, I had to ask you that a little bit. Obviously, he's going to score at the pace that, they can go score at. But I don't want to talk about it forever. I think that we're fully capable of winning with both quarterbacks. A lot of confidence from both. It's just one is a lot more experienced than the other. One has those big game skins on the wall. And then again, the offenses look a little bit different. And to make your point, Gage, and when you're running that RPO game, you are controlling the game a lot more. You're able to use the run pass option. This is going to be great, though. There's going to be a lot of dancing on heads on the old Twitter sphere for the next couple of seasons because there's so many bookmarked Arch Manning 3-star, 2-star, 4, high 4-star or low 4-star at best. All those things. If his last name was Smith, he'd be a 3-star, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm sure we'll all indulge in a little bit of that.
3 stars don't get up to 20.7 miles an hour.
Yeah, you can't say that. Don't do that. Somebody's gonna fact check you real quick. One of those guys are gonna be like a 2-star out of Southern
he's faster
Illinois.
than Tyreek Hill. You didn't see that?
That was for like last year, right? Or like Tyreek's game.
Yeah,
that's pretty cool though.
Yeah.
I don't know if y'all saw it, but they listed like the top like 20 fastest game speed times last year. I don't know if any of y'all saw that. I'll try to send it to you, but fastest that a quarterback had was like, I think 22.7 beam from Kansas last year. And I was like, God dang, these dudes are like flying. Could be wrong. I'll go find the chart and look at it. But all right, let's talk a little about the game outside of the injury perspective and the the whole quarterback debate. What's something you like that you saw? What's something that you maybe didn't like that you saw? It can be a couple of things on either side.
I liked the run game. I thought we were able to run the ball pretty well, so that was good to see. Obviously, seeing Ryan Wingo get involved, that he had some pretty that one catch he had, not the touchdown, but the other one he had, that was legit, man. I was like, that's a great catch. So that was cool on the offensive side. Obviously, it was kind of like like we were talking about, kind of a gut punch, especially when you're sitting on the couch like after Quinn went out. So, but then on the defensive side, they did look a little tired, and there it wasn't like it was dominant. Like they weren't as dominant though as I felt like they were going to be. But man, they're still extremely fast. I think that's still the most impressive thing about the defense is the speed.
How about you, buddy?
Yeah, I mean the run game as well for me. I was very impressed by, especially their ability to seemingly get 7 or 8 yards where they really should have gotten 4 or 5 yards. They just kept pushing and running through the linebackers. The one thing that worried me, again, it's hard to. I don't want to nitpick when you win, by whatever 40 something points, but. I still had there were a couple of plays where I thought our run defense wasn't great. The touchdown, for example, UTSA had a couple big runs. They just didn't end up scoring. I mean, obviously they missed a field goal. But there were a couple moments where you're kind of scratching your head at, did they really just crank out like a 24-yard run out of nowhere? But yeah, those were kind of my takeaways.
No, absolutely, man. You don't want to see us giving up big runs to UTSA. I mean, that's just I don't care if we just came off a huge win last week. What hopefully still looks like a huge win several weeks from now, but definitely have to expect like somewhat not a letdown game, right? Maybe, but a letdown in energy at times, and that's kind of what I think. I'll agree with you there, Gage. I think we just kind of look, like, hey, like let's get this one over.
Yeah.
So, but when the third and shorts, a couple of fourth and shorts, plays where kind of everybody woke up crowd wise, energy wise, we really delivered right there. So I felt good about it in those spots.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was the same way. I was curious. It didn't look like last year's Wyoming game. Now at the same time, Wyoming was a much better football team last year than this version of the UTSA Roadrunners. So that's not really fair to make it a comparison because a whole different world. That Wyoming team was really dang competitive. I mean, I'll take the result. Obviously, you want to win. I guess. I mean, it could always be worse injury-wise, but watching Kelvin go down at one point, seeing Manny Muhammad go down at one point, Quintravion, Jarrett Gibson, I was just like, okay, like let's do one of the things like in high school where it's a billion-point game. Let's run the clock, play a 5-minute quarter, pack it up, go home because I can't watch any more bodies go down. And so, I mean, I'm sure at times we're probably being really simple and vanilla, running just base, just trying to move that game along. But yeah, I like what we saw of the ground game. Both you guys made it a point to say that. Particularly after Arch came in, to be honest. After he had that big run, I felt like it kind of loosened them up a little bit, and they had to honor Arch some, and so then we were able to get inside and squeeze out some bigger gains. But still, honestly, I want to see a little bit more out of the run game. I need to see our line just kind of whip some people around this coming Saturday. It's the last real, cupcake game before we start SEC play, and no, Mississippi State's not good. It's still going to be a completely different type of athlete than what we played, this Saturday and next. But All right, the big topic here over the moment. Gage and I talked a little about this before we came on. AP polls are out. There is a new number one. Texas has not been number one since 2000. Has to
2008.
be
2009.
2008.
So there was never never a time in 2009 where we were number one.
They were number 2 the entire
It
time.
was the
Well, no,
Texas
we weren't
Tech
even 2. We dropped to 3 early in the year. It was Florida and Bama.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah, we were number
was
3
the-
a lot of the year, I feel like.
We were number one for the Missouri game, the
Missouri
Oklahoma
all the
State
way to
game
Tech.
in
Yep.
08.
Yep.
Oklahoma State at home that year, I think, was the last time we played at home as the number one team, if I remember
That is
correctly.
correct.
That's crazy.
Yep, I was at all 3 of those games. It was definitely a cool, special time. When we were number 5 and OU was number 1, won that game. Then Missouri came to town, night game at DKR, an absolute madhouse. That's personally the loudest experience I've had at DKR. And it felt like just the number 1 ranking had a little bit of extra, gave a little bit of extra juice to the crowd, a little bit more. How about you, gentlemen? Do y'all care? Do you want? Does it do anything
Rat
for
poison.
you?
Rat poison.
Why is it rat poison for you, Bubba?
I mean, I don't know. It's to me, I'd rather. I mean, obviously, it's great to be number one. It's awesome. I would rather I'd rather beat Georgia and take it from them than just have it going into that game. And the other part of it is our quarterback got injured in the first half. We won a game with our backup, and we still moved up to number one. It's also just a weird year in college football. Because if we're not number one, who is, right? Like Georgia didn't look very good yesterday.
No.
They won, Kentucky lost because Kentucky lost that game themselves. Like Georgia didn't win that game. I think there were a couple decisions Mark Stoops made that probably weren't the best, but I would much rather be chasing than be the one being chased. And yeah, rat poison. You don't want it to get in the players' heads, and I mean, I think Sark, having been around an Alabama program that was in these spots consistently, he knows how to handle it. I'm not worried about necessarily everybody's gonna stop trying hard or whatever, but I still think I'd rather be 2 until the Georgia game, personally.
All right, Mr. Gage.
We already talked about it a little bit, but I'm obviously going to take a little bit of an opposite stance here. I am very comfortable with the culture that Sark has built and keeping that noise outside. So yeah, I am okay with being number one. This is awesome, man. It's been way too long since we've been this good and we've had a team this good. And this team deserves it. This team deserves to be ranked number one in the country. They've worked really, really hard. Sark's worked really, really hard to get him to this point. And I get the point of going and taking it, but at the end of the day, it's a week 3 poll, and it's not probably going to matter much at the end of the year. So yeah, let's be number one, man. This is cool. This is a good moment for Texas football. It's good for a recruiting standpoint. It's good for everything. It's good to see the number one next to our name. So I think it's awesome that the University of Texas is number one again. That's a good feeling. It's been a long time. It's been a long time coming. So yeah, I'm happy about it. I think the team's going to be great at keeping the noise out. I think Sark's built the culture that says, we play against ourselves, not anybody else. And I believe that. So
I definitely will agree with you there on I've said it all week on the channel. It feels like they're on a mission, and that's easy to say after we beat Colorado State, Michigan, and UTSA, and Michigan, who's not half of what they were last year. It just feels like the attitude is a little bit different, So I can agree with you there. Got to be feels like a very hungry program. You can kind of see it just the way they take the field, the way they act on the field. It's a little bit different than we've had in the past. And so, I mean, yeah, we all love the culture that Sark's brought. And it's a cool thing to be number one. I mean, it is cool. Hey, recruit X, look over here. We're number one. There are a lot of pros to it. No doubt. It's just, for me personally, for one, I don't like rankings at all before mid-October. I would rather wait and see. I think that a lot of these wins would start to look a lot different, a lot differently for each team if we were to wait. It's never going to happen. It's fun for fans. It's fun for media. It's fun for the teams. So it's a moot point. But I'm just saying why I do not personally care about it. I think I don't think it might not. I don't know if it'll be rat poison for our particular team. I can definitely see how it can be. But at the same time, I would much rather be the number one ranked program come January than I would be come mid-September. With all due respect to Michigan, we just haven't played anyone yet. Georgia really hasn't played anyone yet, so I get that point. They didn't look good against a Kentucky team that absolutely got boat raced by South Carolina. And so when you think about it like that, do I think we look better than Georgia at the moment? Yeah, probably do. We're able to roll out there and whip around teams like we're supposed to, but I don't know. It's cool for the program, man. Talking about since 2008. It's the last time that, Joseph mentioned last time we've been number one. It's a long time coming. It's got to feel good, but at the same time, everybody knows we're nowhere close to being done, right? I mean, that's what matters most. And as long as the kids know that, then we should be all good. With that being said, Georgia plays Alabama next week. So, if they go in there and beat Alabama by 2 touchdowns, they're going to flip it right back. We're going to do this until we play Georgia on the 19th of October. So, but talk about that real quick. Georgia, y'all watched a little bit of the game, I'm assuming. I know Gage did. Joseph, you said you did a little bit. Y'all impressed by any? Are you scared of Georgia? That's what I'll say. I'm not. Again, I won't ask you to go too far into it, but do they scare you? Do you think that's a game that I don't know. For me, it's just not a game that's as scary 2 years ago. If I thought about Texas and Georgia meeting up on the football field, seeing what they did to TCU, watching the Brock Bowers, Stetson Bennett, and then every single player on their defense who goes and plays in the league.
Georgia's very good. And I don't want to give them any firepower or anything, not that they care, but I think the big thing on Georgia is they're going to have a tough time handling our versatility on offense. Kentucky was able to, kind of run the ball a little bit, which was the surprising part. It was like, dang, it's going in the trenches. And I was a little shocked because the previous week, like you talked about, South Carolina bullied them. And so it's tough to know, man. It's really tough to know. And we'll see next week when they play Alabama. But I think the versatility part of our offense and the speed of our offense and being able to do so many different things, I think they're going to struggle to defend that a little bit. And then obviously Carson Beck did not look good. That offense didn't look good at all. They didn't. It was pretty putrid effort. And I think that looking back to what Georgia's lost offensively, maybe that's affecting them a little bit more than we thought. Obviously they got ATN, but losing Bowers and losing Lad McConkey and losing those guys, maybe that is a little bit more that's harder for them to replace that than we thought it was going to be, because they were definitely struggling to move the ball against a Kentucky defense that, like I said, they have mowed down against South Carolina the week before. So
true. What about you, Joseph? You scared of the Dogs?
Scared. I wouldn't say scared. Definitely not scared. Not overconfident or arrogant, but definitely not scared. Which coming into the year, maybe a little bit. Maybe I was a little bit scared. But again, I said it before. Georgia won that game in spite of themselves. They should not have won that football game. If Kentucky, goes for it instead of punting, they're in the fourth quarter. There were a couple other decisions where it's do you want to give the ball back to the number one team? You're down one. Just you got to take some risks at this point. But that's beside the point. But yeah, no, I'm not scared at all. I think also having the game at home also feeds into that a little bit.
Yeah.
But it's still 7 days after we're in the Cotton Bowl in Dallas. So I wouldn't say scared, but still a little wary, right? If it was the week after bye week, like the OU game, be different, I guess. But it'll be interesting to see how the team responds, like back to back like that.
Big time physical, emotional games.
Yeah.
That's tough, man. It is. It's going to be tough.
Yeah. So scared? No, definitely not.
Well, that's perfect answers, guys. Obviously, you got to respect the Dogs. They're gonna bring defense. They're gonna try to run the football on you. But I like what we have, and I like that we get that matchup at home. And kind of, with that offense, they've struggled. I guess they didn't really struggle with Clemson after that first quarter. They didn't do a ton early in that game, but then they kind of got hot.
But Clemson is not good too. That's the other thing.
They did not. They looked a lot better in week 2 than week 1. That was rough. But yeah, obviously not playing Georgia in week 2 like they did in week 1, so that helps a little bit. I still don't know on Clemson because I don't know on anybody. I mean, Clemson looked horrible against Georgia. So obviously Georgia looks pretty good in that spot, somewhere in between there. But South Carolina just dog walks Kentucky. A lot of weird things happen in that game. We've already talked about it. But I mean, like, just strange things happen. And then Kentucky almost takes down Georgia at home. And so, I still think we got a lot to learn about everybody, Texas included, man. Those 2 games that you just brought up are going to be a huge part of the season. If you go 1-1 there, how mad would you guys be? Not mad. What would your feelings be?
That was kind of my expectation coming into the year. My expectation was, if you look at, I thought we were going to go 1-1. I thought either we'd, beat Georgia and lose to OU or beat OU and lose to Georgia. So I wouldn't be disappointed. Now, having said that, now that we're, into the season a little bit and we see how the landscape of the season is, or how the landscape of college football is, and we know a little bit more about the teams that we're playing, I think I would be disappointed. Because I think that we are more than capable of beating both teams. And I think that if we were to lose, especially the OU game, I think it would speak more to mistakes that we made than anything else. And that would be disappointing to me.
Yeah, that's kind of how I feel about that Oklahoma game. We were in control of that game. Last year, same story. We turned the ball over 3 times. Saw we lost the game. Gage, would you take 1-1 out of Oklahoma, Georgia?
I would take 1-1 if the loss is to Georgia. I can't. Yeah. We cannot lose to Oklahoma. And I've talked about it. It's like beating Georgia at home. Like, that environment's going to be nuts. The F1 races there that weekend. Like, it's going to be one of the craziest weekends Austin's had in a really long time. And that would be really, really cool to beat Georgia. And I think as long as, there's certain circumstances are right, like, we should win that game. But losing to Oklahoma is not an option in my mind this year. Like, we're clearly the better team. We've got the better coaching. We've got everything in place to go into Dallas and win that game, not just win it, but, and win it by at least comfortably, in the sense of, like, it shouldn't be too sketch. So I get it. It's a rivalry game, and crazy things happen in that Cotton Bowl, and we've seen it. And there's been times where we've been a really bad team and they've been really good, and we went in there and gave them a tough game and almost beat them. And I understand that, but, like, we got to start winning these games against Oklahoma. Like, it has to happen, because we've seen what happens when you continuously lose to Oklahoma. Sooner or later, it's gonna bite you in the butt, and we got to turn this around and start beating Oklahoma. Like, it has to happen that way. So I would be very disappointed if we lost to Oklahoma. If we go 1-1 with a loss to Georgia, as long as we're not, like, go in there and just get absolutely, marked at home, I'll be all right with that. But disappointed, yeah, I'd be a little sad. But we have to beat Oklahoma. I don't think we have to do it.
Yeah, I fully agree with you, man. I agree with a lot of what you said, Joseph. Preseason, I would have taken 1-1 and probably ran with it pretty quickly. Right now, I'm feeling kind of greedy. I don't fear Jackson Arnold in that offense at the moment. They're slowly getting a few bodies back on the offensive line at wide receiver. We'll see what they look like. But their defense is damn good, and people are not talking about that on our side enough. And they turned us over 3 times last year. That's what won them the football game. I mean, talk about where those turnovers were. Set up an early OU touchdown inside the 30. We turned one a pass got picked off inside the 10. We don't score on 4th and 1 or 4 tries from the 1. Like, we easily could win this game by 20 plus last year, but we didn't. And so it's really, really hard for me to, as we get closer to that game. A couple of weeks ago, I was chirping kind of hard about our chances, but as we get closer to the game, I'm giving that defense more and more respect. But yeah, I'm feeling good about 2-0 the chances of 2-0. Just got to go handle our business. But as we referenced earlier, that, I mean, you're talking about getting up and playing 2 very physical, very massive on the national media, scale college football games. A lot of emotions will be poured into them. It really does help that Georgia does have to come here. So that is really big.
Yeah, and I get the point. Just going back to Oklahoma's defense, they are very good, but I think our defense is pretty good too, and their offensive line just struggles, man. And so I just get to a point where I'm just like, man, we cannot lose that game this year, man. Like, this is not the OU team to lose to, but their defense is very good, like, so it'll be interesting. Yeah, I mean, I'm nervous for it. Like, I'm always nervous for the OU game because, like I said, crazier things have happened than this OU team beating this Texas team, especially if Quinn is not playing. But yeah, I just like, that's a game that's like, it just feels like we have to win it this year.
Going back to yesterday's game, give me a game ball offense and on the defensive side if you guys have one in mind. I'm trying to think of mine. I've been thinking for like the last 3 minutes, and I'm torn.
Offensively, I'll go ahead and give it to Arch. I'm gonna steal the easy one. It was pretty cool to see him step up into that spot, even though it was against not a very good team. But he was still absolutely electric as always, explosive, and he stepped in right there and he looked good. So and it's not an easy spot to step into what he's stepping into and get reps with guys that you don't normally get reps with. So I'll give the offensive game ball to Arch. On the defensive side, I'll give it to my guy Colin Simmons for getting his sack. I know he was kind of hard on himself on Twitter yesterday after the game, but I still think he's a beast. And for an 18-year-old, he's out there killing it. Or he might be 19, I'm not sure, but he's out there killing it. So I'll give it to Colin Simmons. He gets the sack, so he's going to keep improving, man. He's really good. He's getting used to it. So
Arch and Colin for you, Gage. What about you, Joseph?
I actually agree with the Colin Simmons pick on defense. I feel like I got to go with somebody other than Arch here. Just seems too obvious, and we already went there. I don't know if I can't pick Arch. Actually, the guy that impressed me the most on offense was actually Jarrett Gibson. I thought he had, we mentioned earlier, there were a couple run plays where looked like we should have gotten 3 or 4 yards, ended up being like 8 to 10. He had a couple runs like that where he just, had 3 defenders on his back and just kept running. So he really impressed me a lot. So he was my game ball guy from yesterday.
Got Jarrett Gibson, and then who'd you say on the defensive side? You say Colin as well? I like it, man. Yeah, Colin's going to be a lot of fun to watch. I do like that he was kind of hard on himself on Twitter because it's like, all right, that's the guy.
I thought you played good.
He's like, I made some great plays. I could have made one more. And that's the type of attitude I used to have. As a much smaller, slower, less skilled athlete than that guy. But it's great to see the hunger, man. You want to see that. He's a 5-star talent who's ready to get back to work. And so big things coming from that guy. Good picks. I'm going to roll with Jonte Cook. Shout out. 2 touchdowns. Massive day through the air. Very hard for me not to choose Ryan Wingo. I am a little bit aching to that guy. I love that he also got in the end zone. On defense, I challenge you both. Go back and watch the film of Ty Anthony Smith. That man was balling. Go check him out. There were a couple of tweets about it last night. We are blessed at the linebacker position over the next couple of years. It's going to be a lot of fun to watch Hill and Smith work together. I feel like that was his best game, as far as he got a few more reps. But I loved what I saw out of Ty Anthony Smith last night. Shout out Jasper, Texas. But yeah, so that's a fun thing about every game that we've had so far. Is like you could have given out 3 or 4 game balls on each side of the line of scrimmage, and it's fun. We're in a really good spot. But as far as ULM goes, we'll do that real quick. anything you want to see in particular? Anything that you're going to have your eye on before we kind of, like I said, last kind of tune-up game here?
Just please, just stay healthy.
Yeah.
That's all I care about, man. I'm just so like that game. We talked about it, but like it just like took forever to end. I was just like, please, just blow the whistle. I don't want anybody more to get hurt. I think that's the big thing. Even just like going back, like there were even scares like yesterday, like even when Jared Gibson, like he limped off at one point, and I think it was like in the third quarter, and I'm like, no way, like this is happening right now. He came right back out. So I don't know, it might have just been a stinger, but it's like, dude, it was just like you're the entire game. You just know how special this team is and how good they are, and so like your heart's just like, I was more nervous for injuries like most of that game than I was for anything else going on. So I think that'll probably be most the same on Saturday. It was just like, just stay as healthy as possible. We don't need to win by 70. Let's just get healthy, man.
Yeah, there was one play. We're backed up pretty deep, and Arch got hit pretty hard. I think it was in the end zone, and I was just sitting there like, oh, we can't. Or even when he took off for his touchdown run, I was like, dude, do not run. Like, you cannot get hurt too. Like, just stay in the ball. And it turned out but that scared me because I didn't like, we can't have everybody get hurt.
Yeah, it's tough, man, because you still have to go out and compete and play the game and try to improve and, you know, get comfortable in the system, learn everything. I mean, just be a part of a football team. But if you're like, dude, we're tired of the injuries already. We've already got enough, and it's just part of the game, and it stinks. I'm gonna just blame that nasty grass or fake grass at DKR, and I'm just gonna assume that when we get the real stuff back in 2026, that it's all gonna be perfect. You know, everything's gonna be easy.
Shout out CDC.
Yeah. And speaking on that, Joseph, you were at the game. Talk a little about the atmosphere. We've all been over there this year, but it's the first night game at DKR. I'm sure our haters are probably talking about how cool the light show is and how DKR is actually a fun place to be. But the stigma around it was real for a long time, man. Texas wasn't great. Fans didn't. I mean, we showed up, but it wasn't a rowdy ruckus, high energy place to play unless we had a big time opponent. And when we're in the Big 12 and our big rival, we meet them in Dallas every year, we didn't really have big time opponents coming to play. So if you want to elaborate on maybe some of the changes you've seen through your time atmosphere wise at DKR, go ahead, Joseph.
Yeah, I mean, you know, my freshman year was the 2021 season, and there couldn't be a starker contrast, not only in terms of, you know, the on-field product, but the atmosphere itself as well. You know, I remember the Kansas game that year. Obviously, we all remember the Kansas game. Like, students were booing the team off the field at halftime.
Yep.
You know, and it was by middle of the third quarter, you know, the student section was half empty, and that was a smaller student section than there is now.
A lot smaller, yeah.
And just, especially from the students, obviously, you know, now that we're good, the excitement is just so different. You know, you used to just be able to walk up to the gate, you know, 3 minutes into the first quarter and you could still get in and there was no line. And now, you know, student tickets are gone like immediately once they open on Wednesdays. It's just a very different vibe around the team, and people stay longer, right? It goes back to, like, you know, was it Mac Brown that said, you know, come early, stay late, be loud, wear orange.
Yes,
right?
sir.
People actually are staying late. You know, obviously you have people that leave early and it was a blowout. But you're not, you know, standing alone in the stands singing the Eyes of Texas at the end. Like, people are staying for a blowout non-conference game against a bad team.
Yep.
It's very different. You know, the light show's cool, the smoke is cool. But for me, it's more like people are really getting into it on third downs, like stuff like that. Like, the drones are awesome, but when it actually matters, people are getting loud, right? And I look back to, you know, the Alabama game in 22. For me personally, that's the loudest I've ever heard the stadium. I wasn't at the Missouri game, to be fair, but and it's just, I don't think that people understand how different an environment this is to what it was 10, 15, 20 years ago, right? Like, people are getting into the game. They're yelling. They're staying late. They're screaming. It's not the sitting back and just kind of watching environment that maybe people think it is. So I love it. I don't think it's ever been better.
No.
It's awesome. It definitely deserves its top 15 ranking in CFP 25 or whatever it is.
Hey, let's go. Trending up. I mean, yeah, shout out Chris Delcani. What an incredible turnaround. The reason the Missouri game was probably for me a little louder than 2022 Bama is because of the time of kickoff. You know what I mean? You have more people in 08 just sit around. Hey, we're ranked number 1. I'm gonna crack another cold beer, and they got to do that all day until 7:00 when that kickoff happened on ABC. Alabama, I remember showing up at 6:30 to college game day and trying to get the Washington State flag guy to let me hold his flag, and he was cranky. I was just like, all right. I mean, I thought we were having a good time. The crowd was loud. The coolest thing about that game was walking in and seeing the student section, because that was the first time where I've walked into our stands or into our stadium since probably late 2000s with Mac and Colt and stuff, and I've been impressed with our student section. And I'm not trying to like overly impressed. I was blown away. They were I got into the stadium. Gage, you've been to a game with me. I like to get in there early. I like to hang out, chill, watch the bands come in, the whole thing. Watch the punters. We're a punter school sometimes, but I was like, dang, the fans or the students are like, they're kind of lit, and it's like 9:45 in the morning.
You know what time I got to the stadium for that game?
I'm sure early as heck, man.
4 a.m. 4
Let's
a.m.
go.
And the line was already wrapped around the stadium all the way to all up to Lost Dodds Drive, and the whole thing was already.
That's
around.
how it should be. That's great, man. So thank you for being a part of that. And I will name drop Reagan Huggins once again. I think it's a combination of a lot of people, obviously a ton of people, but got mad respect for my guy Reagan. He's been very loud and vocal about improving the Texas game day atmosphere. There's a ton of people, Del Cane. I mean, everybody involved. It's really cool to watch. It's cool to see DKR as a fun place for families to go to at the same time, because you have the light show, and like guys that are football first like us, like we want to see a rowdy crowd. We want false start penalties on Georgia here in a few weeks. We want to cause havoc on third down, and but kids, they're like, okay, we got the lights, and it's cool for. It just, I don't know, it makes Texas kind of a cool school again, in my opinion. As far as when you look at the football program and everything, I do think that is a term that is real. There's a cycle of, cool schools. It happens here or there. A&M was a cool school under Johnny Manziel. Miami used to be a cool school for decades. I mean, it's just part of it. I feel like Texas is back to being kind of cool again in this whole atmosphere, environment, that just a whole game day experience. Thank you for elaborating on that, Joseph. I thought it was very well said. Big time difference from 2021 even. I mean, I remember the Kansas game. That was a nightmare. That's where my whole account started that night, and it was a whole. I'm glad I was there, because it's kind of the lowest of lows. You know what I mean? Like at DKR, watching Kansas celebrate in front of your eyes. That was the lowest of lows, and it kind of keeps me humble, but it also makes this climb mean a lot more. So I'm glad I gutted it out and stuck it out for that game, but. Guys, anything else you'd like to bring up, or any topics you want to cover before I get you out of here?
Just going back to the environment real quick. I think that the cool thing about CDC and what he's done is that not just athletes, but everybody wants to go to the university. A lot of people want to go to the University of Texas, but kids are walking onto that campus to go to a football game, even if they don't care about football. And they're like, I want to go to Texas now. And that's pretty cool. Whether it's the light show or anything else, they're walking on campus and they're going, I want to go to Texas now. Not just athletes, but kids all over. And I think that's kind of been missing for a little bit. A lot of times people are like, I don't really want to go to Texas. And I think it's starting to come back where it's like everybody wants to go to Texas again.
That's exactly what I meant when I say like a cool school feeling. Because for a while, there's other options, and athletics definitely plays into like the mindset of kids, like especially in the SEC, like these kids, these frats and sororities, the way that they're committed to SEC football life is beautiful. Like it is so great. And I'm glad that we're kind of catching up here, but they're diehards, and so I'm all about it, man. It all matters. How about you, Joseph? Anything you want to bring up before we get out of here?
No, I think we covered it all.
All right, guys. Well, I think it's safe to say we're all confident in Arch Manning, but we like to see Quinn back, of course. So rooting for a healthy, positive report on that. Guys, thanks for watching. If you're watching on Twitter, please hop over in the bio and or into my bio and follow the link to the YouTube channel. Subscribe, like this video, show these guys some love. Gonna have them both back for pregame and postgame shows. As long as we can all make it work. But gentlemen, thank you for joining me, and we'll catch you all next time, guys. Big time Hook'em Horns. The number 1 ranked Hook'em Horns.
Number 1 ranked.